As I said earlier, arbitrarily gerrymandered your homelands, so do better. Keep that oil coming.
Keep sending us the oil? Well, let's do some very quick and simple fact-checking of that. So somebody wrote that script for Jon Stewart, right? Keep sending us the oil. Somebody at Paramount Global should have a fact-checker, or The Daily Show. There should be a fact-checker somewhere. Paramount Global is a billion-dollar company. The Daily Show's budget is tens of millions of dollars. That certainly, out of the 50 employees they have there must be a fact-checker that would say, let me just check the fact that we're getting oil from the Middle East. So let's just go to chat Claude AI, which I've been using lately, and ask what percentage of oil does the Middle East export to the United States? So it says 8% in 2021. Where does the Middle East export most of its oil to? So it exports most of its oil to Asia and to Europe. It's about, well, again, to Latin America, about like 92%, right? Just even going by the above thing. The other thing basically is that the U.S. is a net exporter of oil, not an importer. So Jon Stewart basically said something factually incorrect. Something actually has been factually incorrect for a long time. This just didn't start like last year. It started in the early 2000s. It's probably 20 years since the U.S. had any real dependence on Middle Eastern oil. Now you might say, well, but this is just a joke. Like, who cares, right? I mean, you're being too serious about it, Max. I mean, just, whether we get it from them or not, it's just for the joke. But what you have to understand is that there are people that care very much on what fact you use for your joke, wherever you get it. And, of course, it's called propaganda. So now in this case, does it matter whether an American believes that the Middle East that they're getting oil from the Middle East or not? Yeah, it actually does. Because from the propagandist point of view, they want Americans to believe, oh, we're spending all this money on Israel and we're helping Israel because we need the oil from the Middle East. And they're helping us. They're guarding everybody, right? And so, yeah, we need it. That fact is important to us. So when Jon Stewart's saying that, he's helping propagandists send the message to Americans, it's okay for all your tax dollars to go to these bombs and whatever, to Israel and to Egypt and Jordan or whatever, because, by the way, yes, the U.S. gives money to a lot of Middle Eastern countries, not just Israel, because we use the oil. So what if Jon Stewart said, oh, even though we don't need your oil, still behave yourself because we created all these dictatorships for you, and, you should thank us for that, right? The joke really wouldn't work. So it's not a joke, really. I mean, what he is claiming, and you have to remember from a propagandist point of view, they don't care where people get their knowledge from, whether it's from a silly comedy show like The Daily Show, or whether it's from a movie, or whether they're reading the paper. They want them to believe certain things. So you could, conspiracy theorists would say, well, the defense industry, the trillion-dollar defense industry of the United States wants Americans to believe we get the oil from the Middle East, there are threats to that oil, and so we need to invest a lot in our military to protect it. But it's not true. And so you can't make the argument. You can't say, oh, Max, or anybody, you're making a mountain out of a molehill here. No. Why can't you get that simple fact right? Again, this isn't something new. This isn't like high-end geopolitical stuff. I mean, Jon Stewart or the staff of The Daily Show, like anybody can go to anybody that has any interest in Middle Eastern geopolitical issues and ask the question, and they will say, no, we don't get the oil from them. Now, there are other reasons why it's very important to us. Like, say, we give them the technology to get the oil, many of the Middle Eastern countries, and we don't want China to get the oil, and that's a whole long, complicated subject. So this is not trivial. I want to keep pounding this home. For him to say, keep sending us the oil, to basically to further a conceit, a perception that Americans have had from 20 years ago, that that's still true, that is not innocuous. Think about it. Think about if he stopped his little joke right there and he says, hey, you know what? We don't even get oil from the Middle East. Why are we giving this stuff to Israel? Think about that, right? Think about if he had said something like that. So just to explain more about what's going on, so this is my opinion. You know, you should go find out for yourself. I think every American should understand the fundamentals of these issues, of these questions, because it does impact us, right? I mean, we did go to war in Iraq. I mean, war could start there. War is going on there, right? So it's important that you understand so you know what you feel. My assessment of the situation is that, as I said, the U.S. has technological interests in the Middle East. So, you know, our company, Schlumberger or whatever, they go over there and they basically run the higher technology part of the oil extraction process. So we have that. So we want to protect our business interests. And number two, the dollar, we have the petrodollar. So we sort of forced the Middle Eastern countries to basically only sell their oil in dollars. Again, these are deep subjects, but just a big overview. So the reason people want dollars is because ultimately they need it to buy oil. So that's an important thing. So we need the Middle Eastern countries to stay on the dollar standard for the U.S. dollar standard for oil, petrodollars. So again, protect the technology. To protect the U.S. dollar as the petrodollar reserve currency of the world. And the third reason, which is more complex, is that if it was true, like let's just say you say, okay, if John Stewart corrected and said, oh, you know, it's just all the Chinese oil, like what do we care? Like this Chinese oil. Well, it's just like World War II with Japan. If the world was rational, and if you think about it, right? If it's Asia, if it's China getting all the oil from the Middle East, why doesn't China like protect the sea lanes from the South China Sea into the Middle East, right? Why would the U.S. be like, oh, thank God, you know, you guys take it over. We pay a lot of money for our Navy, and our aircraft carriers are so freaking expensive. Oh, my God, like, you know, thank you. Yeah, you protect your own oil, right? Why don't we do that, right? That would make sense, right? Well, I think you know, you're not dumb enough to to not know why we don't do that. Why Europe would be nervous about doing that. Why there are reasons why it doesn't happen. Now, I actually believe eventually China probably will take over the sea lanes to the Middle East. But that's just my opinion. And again, you should have an opinion about it. It's very important. But for now, again, the three reasons why the U.S. Gives all this money to Israel, why you may wonder why are they giving them bombs if they're killing all these people? Because to the U.S. interests, I'm sorry, 30,000 Palestinians dead doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry, it's just that's just the way it is. Which is why some of the jokes that Jon Stewart makes are really like pulling up that head. It's just he really should know better. But anyway, three again. To protect our technological interests of our corporations that do business over there, to protect the reserve currency of the dollar as the petrodollar or whatever, and three, to always have the ability to turn off oil to China if we got into a war with them. Those are the three reasons. Anyway, I just want to give a little bit more depth of clarity again why this is that one little thing Jon Stewart said for like literally 2 seconds. Like keep saying the oil. No, not innocuous at all.